Kenny Omega will apparently never be 100% again. An Attitude Era legend made their AEW debut last night, and the WWE Women's Tag Title Tournament participants have been leaked. Find out who they are in a bit. So, we are all waiting patiently with bated breath for the eventual return one day, hopefully one day soon.
Oh, I hope so. Of
Kenny Omega. But coming out of the Wrestling Observer newsletter yesterday was some quite startling news.
It's not the news we'd really hope for.
So the Observer reported that Kenny Omega went to a couple of tapings in the last few weeks to work backstage, but in hindsight, the travel was a bit too early for the healing required for his injuries, and he won't be in Las Vegas this week for the pay-per-view show. Omega apparently did say the parts of his body that are healthy, he is able to train well, and he's pushing himself harder and harder every week. Other parts, the healing is quite slow. He said he's resigned to the fact that physically he will never be 100%, but he's looking at reversing some of the physical damage and being able to return, and this time off and fixing up his different injuries would extend his time as an effective pro wrestler. And I think that's the number one thing, right? It doesn't matter how long it takes Kenny Omega to heal.
Yep.
Take all the time you need.
He's been, going 100%
for flat out for years now.
5 years now he's been going non-stop with
that meteoric rise through Bullet Club to now. It's just been
and it's been hard hitting. Like he's not someone who works. He works a safe enough style in terms of like it's nothing too dangerous. It's just very taxing on the body.
Yeah.
And it seems it's just everything that he's been pushing off to get fixed is finally caught up with him. Obviously, you never want to hear someone will never be 100% again.
Yeah.
But as you said, he needs to take all the time.
And well, that's it. You know, the more time it takes, the more he's going to be likely able to reverse some of this damage, and fingers crossed it is going to mean that, you know, we're not going to see any change to Kenny Omega. We're going to still be seeing the Kenny Omega that we all know and love.
Obviously, I think it's just a bit disappointing for folk wanting to see him back in the ring very, very soon.
Yeah, or we could tinfoil hat time when Meltzer goes, he's not going to be there at the pay-per-view, and he turns up and there's 5 new matches added. And he just runs through it.
And then they're like, guess who's here? It's Kota Ibushi. Here we go. Everyone is here. That'll be maybe they'll keep this going for longer than it needs to be so that you get that surprise return. But right now it does look like he's a bit injured.
And he's got his off-screen duties as well with the AEW games and everything going on. So he's probably got a lot on his plate as it is.
As I think we said a few weeks ago, this injury came at a perfect time for him. As it was noted in the Observer, was the fact that he was focusing a lot of time on the game and other duties, as like his EVP stuff. He's been doing a lot of the women's matches producing. So maybe
keeping it with AEW from last night, I can't even. It's
a cool moment, right?
It was so cool.
Cool.
An Attitude Era legend made their AEW debut last night. So during last night's Rampage, we saw the Young Bucks. They turned into a Hardy Boys tribute act momentarily, didn't they? So
they gave it all. They were very convincing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I watched the clip, I was like, that? No, it's not. It's not them. But they look.
When Matt did the fall. Nick was all decked out with the face paint, full Jeff Hardy look. But they weren't alone because they were accompanied by Brandon Cutler as Lita. But Lita isn't the Attitude Era star who
it's
made
not
the debut.
that Attitude star.
No, but Brandon Cutler had the thong on and everything, and oh my god, I can't stop laughing every single time I see it. It's just.
Yeah,
it's incredible attention to detail. But they were also accompanied by a debuting Gangrel.
It's wild. He's there, and he had the
chalice and the big like
up, and he had the shirt, and he looked the same. Maybe he is a vampire.
Maybe he is. Fanging and banging.
He did not look like he's fanging and banging. Indeed.
Either way, after the match, they turned on Gangrel, and it led to the Hardy Boys making the save. And obviously, you've got the link there through the new Brood. And I don't know whether this is going to be an extended stay for Gangrel. We had heard that obviously they were planning on bringing him in earlier.
Yes.
There was the Edge entrance situation,
which
and it ruined the plans. And so it's been nice to see Gangrel pop up, and I hope he's used like at some point, through this stuff, because
if he can still wrestle.
He's the type of character I can see fitting in with all of the kind of zaniness of AEW.
Keep him with the Hardys and just give him that other extra dynamic that they don't really need, but it'll just make us very happy and go, oh, he's got the chalice. He's doing it.
keeping it with, sort of keeping it with, external WWE things, because this person was momentarily external from WWE.
Yeah.
We have a Hall of Famer returning to the company into an executive role, a big executive role. Who is it, Fraser?
It is the one and only Jeff Jarrett. It's with the J-E-R-R. His whole thing. He was in Impact and he's now back in WWE. According to a report by PW Insider, Jarrett will be working in a high-level executive position, which has been described as him taking over live events.
Yeah.
Jarrett previously returned to WWE in 2019, working as a backstage producer, so a road agent, and then joined the creative team briefly, and then went over to live events. And then what happened? There was maybe something in 2020
I
that
can't
caused
quite
live
remember.
events to end.
But
there was no
we all just
touring.
stayed in because there was nothing else to do.
Nothing was happening.
Everything was boring.
We all
wasn't it?
just unanimously went, let's just stay home.
Just sit in my pants for a year and a half.
2 years. But live events have restarted. So Jeff Jarrett has rejoined the company as an executive, and he looks like he's going to be beginning his new role next week. We don't really know what the job entails outside of he runs them.
It's good to hear because, when WWE did shutter a lot of positions, I think they shuttered their live division pretty early on during lockdown because, it's just sitting there. And a lot of people were like, but the staff now have, they're all being laid off or furloughed. And it was all quite, and it sucked, but it's hopefully this means we're going to see a lot of these staff brought back if they so want to, if they've not already moved on to another position. But, fingers crossed, it means live events are going to maybe start to uptick a bit more. We'll see more and more
they're doing very small touring at the moment. I think they do a Saturday night, which their branding is Saturday night's main event. They do a Sunday night, and then that's it.
NXT are starting to hit the road again as well.
NXT's on the road, so maybe Jeff Jarrett will have some impact on that. No pun intended. We will see what he will do. Maybe he'll change up the format of live events. Maybe we'll see.
Maybe.
But
title change on every show.
Go on,
6 sides.
Vince Russo
Jeff.
books every show, and it's 6-sided ring, and you'll have people in cages dancing on the entranceway. It's what you want. Cheeks is making his return.
Yeah, that's. And finishing off today with updates on the WWE Women's Tag Team Title Tournament. So obviously the developing situation that is growing and growing by the day between Sasha Banks, Naomi, and WWE. If you're unaware, if you've been living under a rock or have just woken up after a very long sleep, they got to an event. Was it Raw? They got to Raw. They handed their tag belts to Johnny Ace and walked out.
Yep, not to be seen from.
They've been suspended. WWE made a very big thing of it. They did a big public thing, statement, and it's sort of people are still on the fences. Is it real? Is it a work? Is it something that was real that's getting turned into a work? There's a lot of questions still, and there's not a lot of answers. But what we do know is that last week, or was it? No, it was this week. Michael Cole announced.
So not last night's Friday, but the previous Friday. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on commentary. Well, Michael, you did your best impression of Pat McAfee last week. He did not know what was going on. He admitted that was the first time he was hearing about it. But Michael Cole said that the titles were vacated, Sasha and Naomi were suspended, and that there would be a tournament to crown new women's tag team champions.
But no names were mentioned, no teams were mentioned, nothing.
It was because they don't have any teams.
No, but the Observer apparently have got a hold of some of the names that are in and around this situation. Yes. So apparently there have been different pictures made about the tournament, and at least 2 involved a 4-team tournament. In one, the 4 names are Natalya and Shayna Baszler, Tamina and Dana Brooke, Nikki Ash, Doudrop, and Carmella and Zelina, even though they already broke up.
They're not a team anymore.
Except for Natalya and Baszler, there was no other team being used regularly, although Ash and Doudrop did do a television loss to Banks and Naomi 2 weeks ago. Natalya and Baszler were losing to Banks and Naomi at house shows and had a television tag title match a few weeks ago on SmackDown. So I think, was it... Yeah, we saw Natalya Baszler at the Newcastle show versus Sasha, and so that looked like something they were kind of heading towards. But they've always just got Natty in and around anywhere because
I guess
she's a good pair of hands.
She's a good hand in the mid card.
Yeah,
she's a good hand in the mid card, and she I wonder how they're going to do this in terms of.
I mean, four
Have they
team
got-
tournament's already kind of weak.
It's kind of small, unless they do a round robin, which I don't see WWE doing.
They should lean into the fact that they said once upon a time these belts are defendable across all three brands, even though NXT's not really seen as a brand anymore.
And they've got their own tag belts.
I'd say maybe throw the NXT tag champions into the mix.
I would love to see
Women's Tag
Toxic
Champions.
Attraction up on the main roster doing a little thing in there.
I think, you've got Mandy there, obviously, so there is a way you can kind of reintroduce them momentarily for something like this. Just have Mandy return for a brief little thing.
Yeah.
But, if they go down well as well, it might mean the company's like, we'll just call them up. So it could be something where we see maybe a lot of mishmash teams thrown together, or it could be a whole storyline where WWE are like quite openly to the female talent, look, we need teams.
We need teams. Can
and
you
then
please
we'll
all...
start to see kind of...
It's like in PE where your PE teacher goes, pick someone. You just
There's just me on the end while they're all picking for football, just like...
It's like, who wants to be paired with who?
Thanks, guys.
I hope the tournament goes okay. Again, we need to know more information about it in terms of what's happening with Sasha and Naomi. Maybe we'll see them return at the end of it like we did in 2011.
I know a lot of people have been calling for just the dissolution of the women's tag titles, but I think that's counteractive. I think that, yes... WWE maybe haven't treated those belts with the respect they deserve. They haven't really lent into it, even though it was quite exciting when they announced, the initial rules. It'll be defended across 3 whole brands. It'll be all this, and I think there is still stuff can be done there, but it's just whether WWE's prepared to do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because there ain't nothing wrong with having women's tag titles. You've just got to use them.
Use them
You've
properly.
just got to use them.
Have teams. Don't get rid of half your roster.
Yeah.
Just keep some depth there.
Anyway, that was the news. Me and Fraser, once again, will be live at 3 p.m., which will be pretty shortly. Over on this channel. I do it every time.
It's
over
YouTube.
on this channel
on
here on YouTube. Right here.
You can go and
3
wait.
p.m.
We've already got the video
right now.
We've got it up.
We're going to be playing through the card of AEW Double or Nothing 2022 on WWE 2K22. So it's it's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to win. I'm going to win all the matches because I'm class.
I'll get a roll up.
No, you won't. Bye.